Good morning. My name is Lalitavira, and I'm going to read you a poem. It's called Prayer by Carol Ann Duffy. Prayer. Some days, although we cannot pray, a prayer utters itself. So, a woman will lift her head from the sieve of her hands and stare at the minim sung by a tree, a sudden gift. Some nights, although we are faithless, the truth enters our hearts, that small familiar pain. Then a man will stand stock still, hearing his youth in the distant Latin chanting of a train. Pray for us now. Grade 1 piano scales console the lodger looking out across a Midlands town. Then dusk and someone calls a child's name as though they named their loss. Darkness outside, inside the radio's prayer. Rockall Malin Dogger, Finisterre. When I was younger, we used to listen to the top 40. I grew up in England, as you can probably tell from the accent. Used to listen to the top 40 on Sunday nights, and before the top 40 there was the shipping forecast, which used to have a recitation of all the names of the various ports and the areas around the UK. Rockall, Malin, Dogger, Finisterre were some of the names that cropped up. It was a litany, recited every Sunday night. And I remember really wanting them to get through it so we could get on with listening to Bohemian Rhapsody or whatever it was that we were enthusiastic about at the time. But Carol Ann Duffy's poem retransforms that old phrase into something quite magical, something sacred. And I wanted to talk about prayer because prayer can sometimes get a bad press in Buddhism because it's so associated with theistic religions, with God, with praying to somebody else to take responsibility for your life. And yet I still need to pray. I still feel the need to pray. Not for help, but sometimes there's experiences in my life, feelings, sensations. It's hard to put words to them, things that happen inside. And I want to communicate them. And I need to communicate them. Often this happens when I'm in nature and I just feel a huge sense of gratitude. Or it's something to do with something that's happened in a friendship or a relationship or something I've seen in the world that somebody's done, and there's a need to articulate that internally. I was talking to my wife about this morning, and she talked about, are you going to talk about prayer as intention? And prayer is that as well. The forming of a clear intention about what you wish to do, or what you aspire to, what you hope for. And that has its place as well. But I also want to talk a little bit about why I've used a poem to introduce this. And like a lot of people, poetry has become for me a sort of alternative liturgy, alternative sacred text. It's a place where I find some of the articulation of those small moments of insight and love and loss. Poetry captures them very well. And it's interesting, I was brought up as a Catholic and rejected it quite early on. And yet I still needed some form of sacred text, some form of writing which really encapsulated things well. It's interesting, the English poet Ted Hughes was once invited to take part in a seminar by the Archbishop of Canterbury about the relationship between art and religion, and he refused, and there are several really fascinating letters that he wrote trying to explain why. And he said to him, and he's speaking about England here, to him, formal religion is like the National Health Service. It's all set up, it's all there, it's big, it's monolithic, it kind of knows what to do in a rather functional way. But a poet, him, he's like a country doctor, which has idiosyncratic, strange, hard to explain ways of doing things, which still heal, they still work, but they're peculiar to him. And I think, like Ted Hughes, we're all poets in that sense. We have our idiosyncratic, unique moments of, again, you see, it's hard to get the words, but those moments which for me prayer can articulate and which poetry articulates, those moments which are ours. And I think they're to do with what Buddhists call Shraddha, or faith. They sometimes call it the call in the night. That one really resonates with me. That still small voice of humanity, maybe, as another poet would put it. And I think part of my practice of Buddhism is listening for those moments and responding to them and giving them their life. And in fact, a lot of practice helps that. Mindfulness is necessary to hear and be sensitive to those moments. Metta and loving kindness are necessary too. Another artist once said, I can't really look at things without tenderness if I'm going to make art out of them. And in a way, I can't really look at the world without tenderness, without rawness, without that slight vulnerability that really is a response to the world from the heart. So this week, I'm going to listen more to those moments of the heart, those prayerful moments, and maybe think a little bit about who or what I'm praying to. Anyway, have a good day. Stay safe, stay sane.